Reading, as Championship winners, one would assume that that might make them the best equipped to stay up, but perhaps that's not necessarily the case.
One would assume, wouldn't you? Yeah, not for me actually. In fact, of the three teams that came up, I'd say Reading are probably the ones I'd be most worried about. They came up on the back of that remarkable second half of the season, but when you actually look into some of the details of their campaign, I think there's things that perhaps are just slight alarm bells. 69 goals in 46 games is a very low number for a team to finish top of the division, and in fact I think it was equal with 15th place Ipswich, which gives you some idea of what that means. But then you look at why that is, and you look at the players they've got up front, and they brought in Pavel Pogrebniak, who had a great second half of the season when he signed after January for Fulham. But I don't know if you actually look through his career if you'd think, well, this is a guy who we can certainly rely on to keep scoring goals at that 1 in every 2 games rate. It's not something that he's done for a lot of clubs that he's played for. And the other strikers that you've got coming up, you're looking at Adam Le Fondre, who was playing League 2 football before Reading signed him last season, so he's jumping up all the way from League 2 to the Premier League in the space of just over a season, and he scored 12 goals in the Championship. So is he going to be able to score a hatful of goals against Premier League defences? I have my reservations about that. And the other man in that mix is Jason Roberts. Again, not necessarily someone who you're thinking is going to blow the league away. So I think that's my real concern with Reading is where are the goals going to come from, and I think that's something that is always significant for any team coming up.
Is there an argument though that, you mentioned Le Fondre, and I think with 12 goals, that being the top scorer last season in a title-winning side, unusually low, that indicates that obviously they spread the goals around the team a bit. So is that something that they could be banking on, or do you think when you're in the Premier League you absolutely have to have a proven goal scorer to give yourself a chance?
I don't think you necessarily do. I think you could look at even QPR last season stayed up with, I believe their top goal scorer was Heider Helguson with 8 goals. So you don't necessarily need to have someone who scored a hatful, and Reading clearly are able to share the load around a little bit more, and that's partly to do with the fact they've got a fantastic manager, and when you've got that, then a lot of things can fall into place a bit more easily. But I guess if I was looking at this squad and thinking, wow, there's huge quality through the rest of the team, and the only thing they're missing is a striker, then you might think differently. But really, I look at it and think, well, they've got some decent players. Mariappa's a good signing in my opinion. I think Guthrie's an okay signing, but there's no one. It's not a squad of players that you look at and think, well, all of these are clearly Premiership calibre players. So you haven't got that, and you also haven't got the confidence that there's going to be goals coming from someone. So I don't know. Other than saying, well, they're a group that have done very well together, that are well run, well managed. I don't know what it is that gives you huge confidence about them and what they're going to be able to do at a higher level.
Is one of the best things they've got going for them, if they have a wealthy owner, that at least if things aren't quite going to plan, they can try and do something about it in January? Yeah,
I think that's clearly something that you would imagine is an option for them. And I'm slightly surprised, given when the takeover happened, that there was this talk about his wealth. I'm slightly surprised that with this move to Premier League there hasn't been a bit more spending. I don't think they've been going for an overly aggressive approach in the transfer market. And maybe that's just a reflection on, or positive reflection on him and the way he tries to do business level-headedly. But I can imagine a situation, certainly in January, where if things aren't going as expected, and if they're struggling, that if you've got deep pockets at that point, you start to get a little bit anxious and start to think about moving on certain things. So certainly it's a possibility, but we'll have to wait and see on that one, I guess.